I'm going to bring up our next storyteller. She's also here for the very first time. I'm so thrilled to have her here. You may have seen her on House or on Risk, either in LA or here in New York. And she's got a really fascinating story for you. Please welcome Dava Krause.
So I grew up in Philadelphia, in a suburb outside of Philadelphia, and I went to an all-girls school for 13 years, K through 12. And my parents sent me there, and we were basically bred to be feminists from day one. No joke, we once had an assembly on how to give a handshake. If you would like to know, it's web to web, firm, with eye contact. Okay, so you're never gonna meet a Baldwin girl that gives you one of these, okay? Handshake. You know, we were taught to be doctors, not marry doctors. Every single one of my teachers was a female except for one history teacher who took a year off for paternity leave and wore wool socks with Birkenstocks, and this was like in the 90s, so it was, you know, he was very crunchy. And every year, we, as a school, this was a fun activity, we reenacted the Seneca Falls Convention, which I don't know if you guys, yeah. Some people have prom, we have Seneca Falls, okay. Good times, everybody. So, my parents sent me there, not because it was a very feminist place necessarily, but because it was rated the #1 school in Philadelphia for like getting your kid into an Ivy League school. That's why they sent me there. Cut to before the election, not before the election, after the election, on Facebook, the Women's March. I see the Women's March, and the first thing I think of course, is Seneca Falls. And I'm interested in going. A lot of my friends I know are going, but I'm kind of terrified because when I think of a march, when I think of like a protest, the first thing I think of is like tear gas, and like, we're gonna be arrested, and like, just like horror, like all these images in my mind. And then the other thing was like what exactly happens at a march? Like, do you march? Like, what if you don't keep up with the people in the march? And like, what if you have to pee? Like, is it like a drum line thing? And like, you'll lose your place? And like, it was in DC, and how was I gonna get there? And what if I got stuck down there? And like, I don't know, the whole thing was just like so overwhelming and just like too many things to think about, so I didn't really think about it. And then, my best friend from high school, who still lives in Philly and works at Haverford College, said that the college, which is also a very small liberal college, the college was arranging buses to go down to the march. So you just had to show up at Haverford, pay $25. They were going to do a round trip with the bus, maybe give you some snacks, and so all the logistics were taken care of. And then in addition, a friend of mine from Los Angeles was flying in for the march. And she grew up in Los Angeles. She's an Iranian American. She grew up in Los Angeles, going to protest with her parents all the time, like protest pro. So I was like, all right, I got my logistics in order. The thing that I was most worried about after that was my father. So Haverford College is like 10 minutes from where I grew up. I knew I could take the train to Philly with my kid at the time, who was 1, drop her off with the grandparents, and go to the march. However, one catch. My dad is and has always been a don't touch my money, pro-Israel Republican. And like, so crazy that we have money buried in our backyard, you guys. For reals. Okay. Gold, actually, gold. And silver, because, hold it, you can't buy a loaf of bread with gold. As if we live in a shtetl. And like, I'm gonna need to like take a loaf of bread and like run for it. I don't know. Anyway, I guess if the apocalypse comes, we'll have money for bread. Okay, anyway. Now, my father and I have never seen eye to eye on basically anything, and especially on politics. He always called me a bleeding heart liberal, which I thought was funny. I was like, oh, do you mean I have emotions and care for other people? Yes, I do. You know, I am not a good person to have a political conversation with. I do not hold my composure. I do not have like facts at my fingertips. I do not speak eloquently. I am not trying to communicate with the other person. I basically just like see red and just like fuck, like just anger words come out of my face. Couple examples of this. One time we were. It was Thanksgiving, my sister was watching RuPaul's Drag Race, and I heard my father mutter under his breath, "That's disgusting." And I was like, "I'm sorry, what now did you say?" And he said, "Well, I don't understand why they have to parade around like that. I think it's disgusting." And I go, "You're fucking disgusting!" And then left the room. Good argument, Dava. Way to get in there with, you know, reason and logic. At which point later on, he was like, "I'm your father. I know, you know, you need to treat me with respect," which I disagree. Respect is earned, but anywho's. Another instance of this was I was pregnant, visibly pregnant, and we're sitting at some family function, and again, it was something about, and I think my father's gotten worse. I really do, but he's such a homophobe now. And we were sitting talking about, it was the thing that happened with the people in North Carolina who were like, "We're not gonna make your pizza for your wedding," because yeah. And then there was like, yeah, I'm not, again, not with the facts, not good. Not very good with the facts, but I'm just like, those people! So my father was trying to tell me like, well, it's a private business and you know, they could do whatever they want. And I was like, well, what if they were anti-Semitic? And he's like, well, then Jews just wouldn't eat there and they would go out of business. And then I just was getting so worked up, and my husband is nudging me under the table, And then finally I go, "You're a fucking idiot!" And I left the room. Again, not good with words. And my husband got so mad at me because he's like, "Pregnant, you shouldn't be like, you should not be engaging in this conversation." So you're getting worked up, you know, and so from then on, I was just like, okay, like, we're just not gonna talk about politics, like ever again, we're just not gonna talk about politics. So here I am, I call my dad, I tell him I'm coming in, I'm gonna go to this march, you're gonna hang out with my kid, and it's gonna be great. And he was like, okay. You know, and I go home, and per usual, Fox News is blaring in the background, you know, at all hours, and I'm just, oopsies, hi. And I said hi to Lactaid, by the way. And I'm just trying to knuckle through it, you know, because even though I'm not going to it's his house, he can watch Fox News, that's fine. You know, I get him to turn it off at some point, because I'm like, can my kid watch Sesame Street? Thanks. But, you know, it's his house, and we're making our protest posters, and on the kitchen table, my friends and I. And, you know, what I really want to write is like, "Fuck you, you piece of shit, orange fucker," you know, like, "Impeach," you know, whatever. I don't know, I'm just like, I just like fill in the blank. But instead I write, "Women's rights are human rights," okay? You can't deny that, right? Even my father can't deny that. My father is, you know, wanted me to be a doctor. Sorry. You know, the whole time he's not saying anything, and I'm really nervous about it. And then my friends leave, and the next day I have to get to Hampton College at 5:45. And it's late at night, everyone's asleep. My father is downstairs, he comes to like get a little midnight snack or whatever, and I'm down there. And he's like, "Do you want me to drive you tomorrow?" And I was like, "Oh, that's cool, like I'll just borrow my sister's car and I'll just park there and it'll be fine." He's like, "No, I'll drive you and I'll pick you up. It'll be easier that way." It's like, okay. And 5:45 that morning, you know, we get up and he's got a coffee that he's made for me in a to-go cup, and he drops me off. We kind of drive there in silence, and all he says to me is, "Be safe." And the Women's March was amazing. There was no tear gas. There were no arrests. It was, you know, the kindest, most inspiring group of people I've ever been among. There was no actual keeping up with marching. There was a lot of standing around trying to figure out what was happening, and then finally moving towards the Capitol. I was able to pee freely without concern. In a porta potty, not my pants. Anyway, so, and then you know he picked me up at the end of the night and he said, "How was it?" And I said, "Inspiring." And that was kind of the end. And I have to say, I didn't really get closure on this until 3 p.m. today. And I'm looking over my notes from a story, and I texted him, and I said, "What did you ever think about me going to the Women's March last year? I'm just curious." And he calls me, because, you know, parents don't text. And he's like, "What do you mean? I supported you." And I was like, "Yeah, no, you did. You were super supportive, but you were great." And he's like, "Well, I'll always support you. You know, I'm your father, and I know we don't see eye to eye, but I love you and I support you, and you know, I'm proud of you." And I was like, "Okay." But you know, it wasn't just like a women's march. It was like an anti. He's like, "I'm not an idiot, Dava." And I was like, "Okay." I can't say the same to you. Like, I don't think I'd drive you to a pro-Trump rally. And he's like, "Well, it's different. You know, you're my kid." And then I thought to myself, and I have to say, my daughter's 2, but if she ever grows up and she wants me to drive her to the equivalent of a pro-Trump rally, I am a lesser human because I will not be taken.
Yams the world